and Speaker Johnson has used that language. One of the other things that the House voted to do was move this TikTok bill through. So this would force the Chinese-owned parent company ByteDance to divest it, to sell it. But they have the better part of a year to do so. The Chinese government says they're not going to allow that. ByteDance doesn't want to sell it. So if this just gets stuck in the courts, isn't the reality that TikTok's not going away?
TikTok, 170 million Americans a day, 90 minutes a day.
Right.
That's frankly more than the power of eyes that your network reaches on a daily basis. And that information, and many young people on TikTok get their news. Yeah. The idea that we would give the Communist Party this much of a propaganda tool, as well as the ability to scrape 170 million Americans' personal data, it is a national security risk.
But it is a national security risk, according to the U.S. intelligence community, that has a direct impact potentially on U.S. elections.
On U.S.
TikTok
elections
accounts
this year.
Yeah, targeted candidates from both political parties during the midterm cycle in 2022. That's the worldwide threat assessment.
This is a
but TikTok's not going away before November.
Well, here is the.
So that means it's an active threat.
There is plenty of creativity on TikTok. There are people that make their living off of TikTok as social influencers. I don't want that to go away. I simply want to make sure that the individuals pulling the strings are not ultimately functionaries of the Communist Party of China.
I understand, but even with this significant bill, the timeline is such that it doesn't take it away as a risk for the election. And it seems the U.S. government is so limited in so many ways when it comes to these election influence efforts.
The timeline of giving this can be a complicated transaction. To give it up to a full year, I think just from a business standpoint, makes sense. The one thing we do have in place, and I'm not putting a whole lot of solace in this, but I was at the Munich Security Conference earlier in the year when all 20 of the major social media companies, including TikTok, including Twitter, X, including Facebook, Google, Amazon, you name it, they have all said they would have a voluntary agreement about disinformation and misinformation in elections, because with artificial intelligence, the ability for people to see this, our images here, maybe having words that we don't speak, ought to scare the dickens out of all of us. And the truth is, these 20 companies have guaranteed a voluntary agreement. They'll take on watermarking, which will indicate it, altered content, be willing to take this content down, but the proof's going to be in the pudding. The parliamentary elections in Europe start in less than 60 days. So we're going along with our European partners to say, all right, companies, you promised, show us what you're doing.